We're all
All
good.
right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is Barb Provo, founder of Purse Strings, coming to you live from very windy Libertyville, Illinois. And as we do every Thursday at this time, we present one of our Purse Strings approved professionals on great financial topics, bringing their expertise and their knowledge and their skills to our audience of women. We're also in LinkedIn, so welcome to all of you professionals out there. Purse Strings provides free online tools and resources to help women make smart financial decisions for themselves and their families. As any of you know, in the financial industries, women are an underserved market, yet appear a very powerful market to the tune of a $24 trillion underserved market, and they're coming into the largest transference of wealth in history. So the money is in the female purse strings as it is, and Purse Strings is proud to provide women, like we said, a destination location for all things financial. They can come and get their questions answered. They can look at our resources that we have available to them. And we also have a top tier professionals in all sorts of different financial industries who've been vetted by us, we provide them training, and it teaches them and how to reach, engage, and earn a female dollar, because women make financial decisions quite differently than men do. Their thinking is different, and also their needs are very different, and that's what Purse Strings is all about. So today we bring you Matt Barnhart. So excited to bring Matt on board with us, and he's going to present to you today. I will let Maggie do the intros.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb. Just remove you from here. And Matt, we are so excited to have you here today. Do you just want to start with telling us where you are tuning in from?
Sure. So we're in sunny La Jolla, California. And I do want to preface that we're on the third floor and have a lot of traffic go by, so we may hear a siren or two along the way.
It's life. It's Zoom life now, so it'll be great. It'll be great. So we're so excited to have you on today and kind of talk about gifting during this holiday season and how really not to ruin your family with gifting. Not just gifts under the tree, but large sums of money or assets you might give to family members over the years. So before we jump in, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. And I guess I'll start with, I'm from the Seattle area originally, born and raised. And in fact, I'll be heading up there this weekend for my grandfather's 100th birthday. So that's exciting. I attended Whitworth College up in the Spokane area and played football there until I got injured, and then went to the University of Washington to finish out my schooling. When I was there, I was studying for biology, science, lots of math classes. And during my senior year, I actually ended up paying for my schooling. So I was working full-time at Boeing nights. And then during the day, I would go to my best friend's construction company and work there, and then had minimal hours in my senior year in school. The importance of that was that I actually helped build the Morgan Stanley Dean Witter office in my hometown of Woodinville. And in doing that, I started having conversations with the manager there about what the career was like, what you do. And I had started trading stocks and investing when I was in my teens. And so it was something I had interest in, but didn't really know much about as a career. And so started talking to Roseanne, who was the manager there. She convinced me that I should come do it. At the time, I was applying for physical therapy schools, and more schooling seemed like more than I wanted to do, since I was working 2 jobs to pay for school as it was. So I started it and I tried it out and I loved it. So that was back in 98, 99. Morgan Stanley had an incredible training program that was actually in the World Trade Center. So I spent 3.5 weeks in the Trade Center. I think it was on the 70th floor. And it was during the Christmas tree lighting and everything. So Seattle boy spending 3 weeks in New York was pretty exciting. Again, did not turn me off from the industry. And then shortly thereafter, as I had found my career, I met my future wife, Andrea. And she was just finishing up her schooling, and she went to optometry school in Orange County, which is what eventually brought me down here to San Diego. So her first rotation was here in San Diego, and this is kind of where we've set up home base. Through several different companies, I'm now with Mass Mutual and run a team of advisors here. Our team is called Concierge Wealth Management. I am the lead advisor and CEO, and we manage about $350 million in assets. But our biggest focus, or our primary focus, is on legacy planning and helping families keep the money within the family. And part of that is just figuring out what kinds of mistakes people make and why they make them, and then trying to help them not make those mistakes. So one of the things that we do, my kids were born, my daughter was born in 2009, my son was born in 2013. And so some of the things I'm learning by teaching my kids and really seeing how they learn at a young age, but also how can we start incorporating those learnings with older children that maybe never got the opportunity to learn these things. So that's who we are.
I love it. I love it. It's a great story and a lot of adventure along the way. So let's just dive in. How do we keep from ruining our family with gifting?
Sure. So I guess what I would say is gifting in itself is not going to ruin the family. We spend 80% of our time, or if we look in hours, a family, a business owner spends 80,000 hours in their career, either building their career or their business. And they spend, on average, 8 to 10 creating their succession. So 80,000 building everything and 8 to 10 hours actually figuring out how to pass it on. And from my perspective, that's a big hole in how we look at things. There's several areas where families come up short. And historically, 70% of families lose their family wealth within one generation.
Wow.
And that generational transition happens every generation. So if you start with 100 families, 70 of them are starting over fresh the next generation. And then you have 30 that make it to that third generation, and 70% of those fail in that generation.
Wow.
And there's a story that I really like that kind of talks about why I think this happens. And we'll go into the very specifics in a minute. But the creator of Dubai was interviewed, and he gave a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but I'll get it close. And basically the quote was, my grandfather rode a camel. My father rode a camel. I ride a Mercedes. My son rides a Mercedes, and my grandson will ride a camel. And this is the story we hear throughout time, throughout every country. And here it's rags to riches. And it's rags to riches within 3 generations. In other cultures, it's rice paddy to rice paddy within 3 generations. And the quote itself is talking about when there's hard times, it creates strong people. And strong people create good times or easy times. And easy times create weak people. and weak people create hard times. So there's this cycle that everything goes through. There's a cycle that we're seeing occur right now in our country, in the world, but that same cycle happens within families, where when things get really good, it's easy to rest on your laurels, and that creates bad times. And so that's the cycle we see repeating. So how do we not have that happen? That's the whole purpose of what we try and accomplish. So Tracy, if you don't mind pulling up the next slide.
Oh.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the why and the problems that have been identified and how you prevent them. So number one, this study was done by the Williams Group. They studied multiple generations of families and why 70% of those families lost their wealth within that one generation. So reason number one, and it's only 3% of the reason, is failure of financial professionals. So most people would think it's much higher than that. So you can do all the right things, work with all the right people, and still fail to keep the money within the family. To me, that was very eye-opening. It means that when you talk about those 80,000 hours of building a business, you're focusing on the financial piece of it. You're not focusing on the parts that actually will put things forward. Same within managing money. We're looking at the day-to-day, the month-to-month, the year-to-year. We're not looking at the generation-to-generation. And we really need to flip that. We need to look more long-term and start building a structure where that happens. So number two is 12% due to no defined family mission. And typically I like to call it values. So every family has their values, whether they're written or not. My family, we actually sing a song. I'm not going to sing it for you, but we have young kids and we have a family meeting every week and we have our values and we sing a song about those values so they never forget them. But every family has those values, and at least generationally speaking. And those values, if they're not passed on to the next generation, or at least communicated to the next generation, that's where you start to have slippage when it comes to keeping money in the family. Number three, at 25%, is due to unprepared heirs. This can mean a lot of things. It can mean not prepared with proper stewardship of money. It can be, in many ways, beyond money, intellectual capital, the things families have learned, say, within a business, or the importance of education. It can also be the human value. And how do you add value to yourself? How do you take care of your wellness? So there's the saying that you can't fill somebody else's cup if your cup is empty. So in the same way, if your heirs are dealing with empty cups, they can't continue that process and continue to move the family forward. And then finally, and the biggest reason, is 60% due to lack of communication or trust within the family. So over time, what we see is family members start to lose contact with each other, start to lose communication around what's important, why are we doing this? And one of the things I see often is an unwillingness to understand other people's issues. I'm this way, so why aren't you? And so one of the biggest things is making sure there's communication within the family about those family mission, values, education, making sure everybody's on the same page of where the family is trying to head. So those are the biggest issues that we found. Again, I see this all the time where somebody passes away and I'm introduced to their beneficiaries and they have no idea what to do. What they see is, I just inherited a bunch of money. I'm going to pay off my mortgage. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And maybe those are the right answers, but they're not being thought through. They're the instant answer. And they're certainly not what was intended with the gift. So an example, a family very close to mine, it's actually a family member on my wife's side. They had set up, husband and wife, set up a trust for their 2 biological kids and their 2 adopted kids, and thought they had everything in order. Wealthy family. All of a sudden, the wife was diagnosed with ALS. And over about a 2-year period, she went from perfectly fine to passing away. And within 6 months, she was in a wheelchair and needing to be fed and cleaned and everything. So a very quick transition from feeling like everything's perfect to what the hell are we doing? Basically, it put the communication on hold within the family. Nobody was talking about what needed to happen, what the intentions were, what everybody's goals were. What they did, they set up trusts before all of this happened, and then never communicated what the intent of those trusts were. Basically, the intent was that all the wealth continue to service the family in need. So, for example, if one of the kids or the grandkids needed money for education, they were given a loan. If they graduated, then the loan was forgiven. If they wanted to start a business, same thing. They could receive a loan, and if the business was successful, the loan could be forgiven, or it could be paid back over a certain amount of time. What that did was it put a level of responsibility on the person who might have, in other situations, inherited the money. And they didn't have to earn, and I'm going to use quotes, earn that money when it's inherited. And so they don't feel as much value in it. And it's just for them. It's not for the purpose of the family. Whereas if you're taking it from this trust and using it for education, and either paying back the loan if you don't graduate, or if you're doing the business and paying back that loan, it just helps future generations. So it's kind of a snowball that as more and more family members join that family, they continue to grow the snowball. And everybody has a piece in contributing to it. So the bottom line for that family, the kids thought they were going to inherit money. They were very upset with their father because they felt like he was taking their money, when in reality, the trusts had been set up a certain way ahead of time. And so it's caused a lot of turmoil between the kids and their father. And so she passed away about 1.5 years ago, and I'm still having conversations with the kids and the father about how we can clean it up. So that's one area where communication could really have made a difference in all of that. Go ahead, Tracy. By the way, Tracy is my marketing goddess, and she is amazing. She does all of this. She keeps me put together. So thank you, Tracy. So what do we do? How do we eliminate those 4 issues, the 60%, the 25%, the 12%, and the 3%? How do we get rid of those issues? We've come up with a program that we do, and this is a free program that we do with families. It's 5 days. It's actually about an hour a day over 5 days, and we do it generally 2 days one week, 2 days the next week, and then a final day on the 3rd week. So we do spread it out. Pardon me. But this is basically the agenda we look at. And what you'll see here, when we talk about those 80,000 hours versus the 8 to 10, only one of the days do we really dig into the finances. So day 1, we actually jump in and do an overview of what we call our family legacy program. Some of you may have heard of it called a family bank. So that's kind of what we're talking about when it comes to the financial side and building responsibility and communication and having the family work together. And generally what we do is we work with the first generation, the wealth creating generation. And to start with, we'll talk about what are the core values of the family. What are the things that got you to where you are? And what are the things you would want your kids to know and your grandkids? On day 2, we start talking about who actually belongs within the family or the family bank. And we actually build out a family tree. And what we find a lot of the time is there's folks that absolutely are a yes. And then there's folks that might be on probation, folks who maybe you don't trust to manage the money, but they could earn their way back in. And oftentimes it's not just family members. It may be a friend or somebody that fits the bill, maybe a business partner. So we really define who's in and who's not within that family structure. And then on day 3, we start talking about the I remember when stories. And this is one of my favorite days because we get some of the funniest stories. So over the last year, we've run this, I don't know, maybe 20 times. And we have heard, I'm going to share one. I won't say who it is, but a gentleman who at this age is still very precocious, but he told his mom that he was going to run away. And he packed his bag and headed out the front door and stopped at the corner. And he sat there at the corner for I don't know how long. And a police officer came up and said, as he's sitting there on his suitcase, "What are you doing, son?" And the kid said, "I'm running away, but I'm not allowed to cross the street. My mama won't let me cross the street." So he's just sitting there because he can't cross the street. So we get these funny stories, but it also tells a lot about who's telling the story and what their values are. And so that helps us reinforce some of the values that we identified in day 1. Day 4 is actually our financial day. We dig deep into the numbers, kind of figure out what areas are important to you. We have you do a survey and find the areas that are not only important, but that you feel like haven't been taken care of at this point, where there might be holes in what you've done. And then finally on day 5, we tie it all together. We finish the homework and really discuss what the options are. So for some folks, it's definitely we want to work with you. For some folks, it's that 5 days was their launching pad, and now they want to start doing the research on their own and build things themselves. And we actually give you resources to do that. But our whole purpose is, with the gifting, making sure that people are doing it, number one, for the right reason, and that it's explained and within the whole value and purpose of the family. So that's our program.
Hello, Matt. That was great.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. There are a couple things I just wanted to swing back around on, but yeah, go ahead.
Sure. No. I just wanted to say it's something that we're really passionate about as a team.
It makes a lot of sense, and they definitely are conversations that we don't always have. So I could really see, the more we talk about even people just starting their budgets, about how where you put your money is where you're putting your values. And so this is just on a bigger picture, which makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Barb and I are both dying to hear your song about your values.
Yeah.
We won't make you do that on video, but are both dying to hear it. Let me see if Barb has some questions that she wanted to bring on today.
Well, it's funny when you mentioned that proverb or whatever it was, that story. I had just heard that very similar story like a couple of days ago, and it reminds me of that whole idea around grit, and how grit really builds strength and tenacity, and people have really built a lot of wealth based on that. And if you just give that to somebody, they're not learning some of the skills, some of the knowledge, some of the work ethic that is needed to really solve problems, be creative, start new businesses, whatever it might be. However, there are families of great wealth who continue to really do good things. And, we know these names. I'll throw a few out, non-political, but like you hear the Kennedys or the Pritzkers or things like that. You hear all of these theaters that are in the city or whatever, all named after, or universities and halls are named after large families of great wealth. And they do provide these amazing structures and opportunities for others to learn as well. So it's such an interesting concept when you think about how you can move towards that and do greatness in the world with your money.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, because one of the case studies that I've researched is actually the Rockefellers. Mm-hmm. And they're one of those families that the family just continues to get wealthier and wealthier as they make the right decisions. As you said, teaching grit. It's funny you say that, because that's one of the things I talk about with clients all the time, that you need to teach how to be able to go through a hard time, even if there isn't truly a hard time.
Right.
So
and it's tough love. I mean, with our children as well, right? We want to give so much to our children. And I know many, many families of great wealth who have children who struggle, and they just kind of let them struggle. They've given a lot. They've given a lot of the support and the foundation and everything, but they have learned that the struggle is part of the learning and part of the growth.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think struggle is important, but I think also the learning piece of it, of how to get through the struggle.
Yep.
So one of the things that we do, my kids are still young, they're 8 and 12, or my daughter will be 12 in a couple weeks. We just instituted this. We finally felt like they were the right age. And we do a family bank where they can put each week they get their allowance, and they can put a portion of their allowance once a month into the family bank. And the family bank pays them 10% interest per month. That's just so we have easy math.
Yeah.
but it's to teach them. So this last month, they each received almost as much as their weekly allowance on the interest for the month. And so you could see the wheels turning on, okay, wait a second. I just kept money there instead of here, and I earned a whole extra week of allowance. And so they started putting more into the family bank.
It must have been compounding interest.
Exactly. So that it's a lesson that is not a hard one to learn. It's just one that isn't taught very often.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that you're starting young, with the children, because those are concepts that many children don't learn at that age. And if you consistently are going through those kind of concepts and strategies, it's very easy for them to know that going forward and in life when they're doing their own investments. And that's part of purse strings. Many of us were never taught those skill sets. And in school, there's still not, financial literacy is still not required in the school systems, which is something we would love to see and are working towards. So, I love everything that you've presented today, Matt. I think we could talk for hours about this. I love what your organization does. I think it's really critical to the success of future generations. So thank you for bringing this to us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Of course. So yeah, thank you, Matt, for coming on today. Matt is one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you could always reach him on our site, pursestrings.co, or you could just shoot him an email at matt@cwmsd.com. And, this has been great today. And this is the last one for the year, which has been awesome. So it's been a great 2021. And we'll see everyone again in the new year in 2022. So thanks for everyone joining us and being financially fearless. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Happy holidays.